Hi, everyone. We'll give everyone a couple minutes to jump on and then we'll get started. So we have a full conversation today. Thanks for joining us. I know everybody's muted, but feel free to unmute yourselves if you want to say hello. I'll give us a couple minutes. I know people are still logging on. Hi, George. You're brave off camera. Hello. Good to see you.
Sorry, I don't think my mic was working. How are you?
You were muted. Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And the numbers. Oops. Couple more. I'll give it another minute or so and then we'll start. Thank you for being on time. Have to make sure we end on time too for all of you. Hello, Ms. Garcia.
Hi, just keeping quiet because it's dogs. It's a full puppy house today.
That's okay, no problem. I'm watching our participant number. When we get to a steady state, then I will I'll get started. Oh, whole bunch jumping. My rule seems to be 3 minutes after the hour is the perfect time. So give it another minute. Make sure everyone's muted. Welcome everybody who's joining us now. Thank you for joining us. All right, we will get started. Just some housekeeping. I have everybody muted for now, but feel free to unmute, ask questions. I don't have a moderator per se. Ms. Garcia, you're on. If the chat goes crazy, stop me and let me know if I need to pay attention to anything. I'll try my best to stop at appropriate intervals and make sure that your questions are being answered. But there's a lot of information that I really would like to cover today. And part of this is timed intentionally based on where students are in the season and where you are in third year. And when we get started, we'll talk a little bit about obviously how things are different, and that's okay. That's why we wanted to meet with all of you and share some of this really important information. So you are in the right place. I know there was seemingly some confusion about which class should have this meeting about transition to residency, and that was not an error. That is in fact the junior class. I know it's only December, and it seems like Match 2022 is a long time away, but I assure you that the time will go quickly. And our goal today is really to make sure that together, by meeting at early intervals, we know that we're here to guide you. And my goals today are really to spend a little bit of time reviewing the process of the match. I know it's only December, but you've already had a meeting about choosing your senior schedule. And before you know it, the end of the junior year is here upon you, and you're already starting to think about that whole application cycle. I also understand some of you may be planning to take some time off, and that's okay too. But the process is complicated. So my goal is to help you understand it, understand that at some point you need to commit to it. And ultimately, we will all be here to support you when you complete a really successful and exciting process. One of the main areas I'll spend time on today with all of you really is talking about resources. This session is being recorded. A lot of this information is in a different format already on our new website, and I'll show you some of that information. But this is really meant to be informative and open your eyes to all of the resources that are there to support you along the way as you start making those plans to ultimately choose a specialty if you're going to pursue clinical medicine, which most of you will do. Later, so that means not today, we're not going to talk about the details about transitioning to residency and actually going through the specifics of the application. We will meet as a group again, many of you individually with advisors, but additionally as a group around May, before the application season opens officially. And at that point, that session is all about the nitty-gritty of the application itself. So I'm not going to be spending time on that today, but again, directing you to resources that are available for you. Keep you awake. So this is obviously a very intense time. I can't see you. I'm not in the auditorium with you to see if you're laughing. So hopefully I'll see some reactions. I tried to keep you engaged as much as I could. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. It's not to make light of the fact that this is an incredibly intense time. There's a lot going on. And even when I give this talk every year in December, obviously we've never been in the middle of a global pandemic that has completely disrupted and uprooted the process any way that we have been comfortable. And I am here to assure you that although things seem unsettled, we are really, really proud of the senior class and how they've managed everything that has been thrown at them, having to navigate this whole process in the midst of that pandemic. There have been clearly a lot of changes. So I'm not going to mitigate that, but I want you to understand that there are parts that you will be able to control. And we're all actually quite excited about having a vaccine on the horizon. And I hope that we will all be in a better space even 3, 4, 5 months from now as we go through the spring together. So I'm going to focus on the things that usually confuse students at this time, not really related to the pandemic per se. And that is just thinking about this notion that you're going into the spring semester and you're thinking about this conversation about applying to residency. And how can you possibly have this conversation with us, Dr. Machaber, if half of my junior year has not even unfolded and I'm not in a space to think about what specialty I'm ready to choose. So remember, today is not about choosing a specialty. It's about resources. It's about how you're going to go through this process. And so anytime during the spring, as you're starting to think about that choice, I want you to ask yourself if you really, at any given point, feel truly undecided. At some point, you're going to make some decisions that feel good. And in general, if you're really struggling with that, a follow-up question is to think about how confident you generally are in decision-making. Is that something that comes easily to you or something that you often struggle with? Because if you generally lack confidence in decision-making or often don't like to make decisions, there are going to be times that you feel uneasy, and we want you to address those. At some point, as you rotate, you're also going to be able to eliminate things. And maybe you're the student who makes decisions by process of elimination, and that's okay too. Thinking about what areas you're most interested in. And remember, we had you all use careers in medicine. You're going to hear me reference that frequently during the talk. Go back to those profiles. What did the careers in medicine medical specialty preference inventory tell you? What do you think about it now? Repeat the profile and see what it's telling you. So if I do this correctly, I hope this works. Let's see, I can't see it. All right, I posted a question and I would like you to answer, if you will. How confident are you today about the match process? Anywhere from none, or you feel like you got this? Okay, I hope a few of you are honest that you got this. Awesome. All right. Okay, good. You're right where I hope you will be. Now, I think I can share this. Can you all see this? Thumbs up. Awesome, thank you. So most of you are exactly where we expect you to be right now. That some may have no confidence and you're completely terrified. That's okay. That's why we have talks like these. Some of you know some things. Good. Most of you know more than you think you know. You also feel like I'll figure it out. So you've got a little bit on the confidence scale and some of you are ready to go. Great. Excellent. I'm happy to see that. Perfect. So remember, we talked about career choice probably at the end of first year, at the end of second year, and here it is again. All those things that come into play become really important when we talk about how you're choosing a specialty. Because remember, as we frame your process, this is not just about the specialty. It's about the specialty within the context of your life. And all of these factors are different for each and every one of you. So I encourage you to take time, like we talked about at the end of second year, when you were reflecting, and we talked about the importance of reflection. As you go through your rotations, remember to step back and say, what did I love? What didn't I love? What did I really dislike? Was it the people? Was it the patients? Was it inpatient versus outpatient? Was it the fact that I have a lot of uncertainty about what my experiences look like right now amidst a pandemic? And so I'll add here that we understand that your experiences have been different. They may continue to be different. And you'll hear me also talk about the fact that residency program directors, just like admissions deans across the country, recognize that the students going through life right now and going through medical school right now will have very different experiences. And all of that will be part of your journey and not necessarily make matters worse for you. They're just going to be different, and we have to accept that. So I'm going to spend some time talking about the process itself. And I apologize, when I'm sharing the screen, I cannot see the chat. So if things are there at all, I am not seeing them. Okay, I'll ask you, Ms. Garcia, again, if I need to stop, let me know. So I started to mention this. The process is going to look different. And I ask you to recognize that all of us have had to accept a really high degree of uncertainty. If any of you are close to seniors or mentors of yours, your mentors who are fourth years, you will understand that applying in this season and making choices amidst uncertainty has been really, really harrowing and difficult. But I want to remind you that we and all of your advisors are committed to guiding you effectively. We will continue to rely on national guidelines and share them with you as they come out. I'm excited that we have the opportunity to be at the table. I've shared with you before that I do have a role in the National Group on Student Affairs, and your assistant registrar, Carol Archaga, was just appointed to the Committee on Student Records, which is a national committee that also works with the externship process and VISLO and VSAS. So when we have information, we are sharing it with you. The challenge is that even though we work diligently to partner with specialty organizations and bring the information to you, you'll learn and hear our frustration that we don't always know exactly what every specialty leader or every program director wants to see through the application process. And that's our big challenge. So what we're trying to do nationally is to continue some really new innovations in communication that have happened because of the pandemic, and really seeing this transition now between what we call undergraduate medical education and graduate medical education, UME to GME, a lot more communication and a lot more transparency from program directors. And we hope that even as the pandemic becomes more manageable in this process, that our program directors will continue to guide you so things become more easy to manage. The other thing I added in here is the definition of grit. Firmness of mind or spirit, unyielding courage in the face of hardship. If ever grit was important, it is now for all of you. You have what it takes to be successful. You have us to rely on. You have amazing specialty advisors to rely on. We're going to talk about all of that, but recognize that this is not going to be easy. It's not easy at baseline, and it's a lot harder because of the challenges that we're all facing. But we will get through this, and we will be here to support you along the way. This is a quick video. I don't know if any of you have seen, that was put together by Careers in Medicine about what I'll say is somewhat of the chaos of the application process. And it's a cute cartoon that I'm going to share with you, but I did not create this. Oh, I was going to share that with you.
Here it comes. Match day will be here before you know it. You've been working toward this day since the very beginning. But now, on top of your day-to-day responsibilities, you have to review all your scores, research all the different programs, track down your recommendation letters, and compile your volunteer and work experience. And if that's not enough, you probably heard that residency slots aren't growing at the same rate as graduating medical students. So an already complex and competitive situation has become, well, even more complex and competitive. But here's the thing. Instead of applying to a lot of programs and just hoping to match.
Uh-oh. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, that did not work. You were not seeing the video, were you? No, everyone said you can't see it. Uh-oh.
Only the audio was working, but the audio was the most important part until the audio cut out.
Oh, no. Okay, I apologize. All right, I haven't shared a video on Zoom. Let's try that again. 1 second, bear with me. If it doesn't work, I'll send you the link to the cute video. I apologize. Let me try that one more time. Sorry about that, guys. 1 sec. I'm not sure why that's not playing correctly. Let me go back to
Here
the
it
beginning.
comes.
I'll get you back there.
Match day will be here before you know it. You've been working toward this day since the very beginning. But now, on top of your day-to-day responsibilities, you have to review all your scores, research all the different programs, track down your recommendation letters, and compile your volunteer and work experience. And if that's not enough, you probably heard that residency slots aren't growing at the same rate as graduating medical students. So an already complex and competitive situation has become, well, even more complex and competitive. But here's the thing. Instead of applying to a lot of programs and just hoping to match, you can play a strategic and active role in the process. For starters, know your strengths and your level of competitiveness. You know your grades and step scores, so consider all the information and take a realistic approach to your possible options. And don't limit yourself. Make sure to apply to a broad range of different programs. This way you can explore the different types of positions and environments that would be the best fit for you. But remember, don't lose sight of your career goals and your quality of life. So chat with your friends and family and get their input. And don't stop there. Network with specialty advisors and advisory deans. Get advice from residents you know. Practice your interviewing skills and make sure to interact with residents in the program. It's important to be likable and really fit in with your team. But most importantly, take your time and do your research. Remember, a well thought out application approach is the first step for a well thought out match. So stop just hoping and start planning.
Awesome. So that was created obviously as you start the process. And as I mentioned, we'll talk again in May as you get closer
Thank
to
you
the
for joining
details.
this discussion on the
Oh no.
cost of applying for
Uh-oh.
residency. And based on the
I'm
comments
sorry,
we
guys.
received by thousands of you
Technical
prior to this moment,
difficulty.
we know.
All right. Are we back? Something was open. Sorry about that. All right. So in May, that's going to be more important. But right now, the reason I even address all of those factors of what this process feels like is because the earlier you start thinking about this being a reality, when you have some downtime is when you have the opportunity to explore. There's a lot out there to explore. So my goal today, again, is not to make you more stressed at the end of this conversation, but to have you realize that the resources are at your fingertips, and we want you to spend the time exploring before you feel like, now I have to make decisions that I'm not ready to make. When you go into approaching the match, you will ultimately, most of you, be considering a specialty that involves your understanding of the competitiveness, what the programs are looking for, and what your application looks like. So I've divided this into 5 steps, many of which are probably very intuitive to you. The first is grades and records. That's how you've performed in medical school, and we'll talk through the importance of your performance. Your extracurricular activities. And again, here is an important mention that I started with earlier, that program directors understand and will continue to understand that what's been available to you in the last 8 months has been very different than what normally would have been available. So understand that the climate is the same for everybody across the country. Part of your application will be presenting yourself, obviously how others present you, and then that final sprint. So let's talk about grades and records very briefly. What's important now in December for you to understand is that your summative evaluation and your narratives from your rotations make up the bulk of your medical student performance evaluation, which I'll talk about in a minute. So what other people say about you and how that final evaluation is written is really important. So if you are a student whom I often meet who says, oh, I don't ever look at my evaluations, it's really important that you look. The process is improved such that you can look at eValue and you'll see not only your individual evaluations, but the final narrative for your performance. You should continue to check those, because if you have a concern about anything that's there, address it as soon as it's noticeable to you. Do not wait 6 months to go back to a clerkship director to have a conversation about something that others may have forgotten about. So please be aware of what those narratives are looking like as you're finishing your evaluations. You'll be discussing specifics about your own competitiveness with your faculty advisor and faculty in the specialty. So a word about this, I know folks have been asking. Soon after this presentation, you will all be receiving a form to fill out where you'll have the opportunity, as we do every year with our students, to select a faculty advisor who's going to be working with you throughout the process. Additionally, you'll be considering throughout the spring also your choice of specialty and looking at match data, which I'm going to go over with you today. We'll talk about step 2. When I went to update some of these slides, I eliminated the clinical skills exam because, as you know, that is still not online and was removed because of the pandemic. So you will not be expected to take the CS exam. You will be expected to take the step 2 clinical knowledge exam. And our school requirement is that students take it by December of their senior year. And we'll talk about that again in May. Extracurricular activities. This goes without saying. You had to go through this process when you applied to medical school. So similarly, in a holistic approach, programs are looking for well-rounded applicants. You will be describe your activities in your CV. If you feel like you're lacking activities, it's not too late to pay attention to that now. This is part of why we talk about this now. So you can take a look at your CV and say, what are some things I really still would like to accomplish? Your personal statement, which will be part of your application, will help you describe certain qualities that you learned through participation. The activities also involve you and connect you with faculty. And in terms of research, a common question that students ask is it too late for me to still seek out projects? And the answer is no, but you may want to talk to advisors. You may want to touch base with Ms. Garcia, who's on the call, and in our office, our Assistant Director of Career Services, who can help guide you further if you're still looking for some short-term opportunities to get engaged. Interest groups, the faculty who participate in interest groups, and I'll show you in a moment some other important information available to you. Why is your CV important? So students often say, why do I have to spend so much time on my CV when the ERIS application, that's the program that you'll use to apply, looks completely different? Well, part of it is that you'll be giving your CV to potential letter writers who undoubtedly will ask you for it, and you would like it to look professional and well put together. Formatting the CV will be easy then to cut and paste how you describe your activities right into your ERIS application. ERIS stands for the Electronic Residency Application Service. You'll get very familiar with that acronym. It helps you take a query at this point of what's absent and working on what you'd like to fill in. So later, you won't feel like you have blanked in your ERIS application. A reminder here that we have samples on the Office of Student Services website. I don't know how many of you have gone to the website lately. Christina has done an amazing job helping to transition everything to the new format. And so if you click on the Professional Development and Career Guidance page, it brings you to CV samples, and you'll see we have 10 or 11 examples with blurbs on how to describe some of our more common activities that you are welcome to cut and paste and use to your advantage. So do not hesitate, please, to use the samples that are there and use them earlier than when you feel like your CV is due. So next question is, let's see how you do. When was the last time you looked at your CV? Great. Give it a couple more seconds. I am very impressed. All right, so many of you have actually been quite active And as you know, we require students to update their CV annually for a reason. So at least a quarter of you only have this year to look back on. Some of you within the last 6 months, and many of you within the last month, which is fantastic. That is fantastic. Good for you. That's going to come in handy as you get ready to put things together. We talked about the third step being how you present yourself. This is pretty straightforward. You will do a photograph. We'll talk about that in May. You'll be writing a personal statement, usually in the summer. I'm going to talk for a moment about externships because things have changed there. And then you will interview, which will really be an important part of the application. So during the discussion about your senior schedule, we talked a bit about externships, and you've heard that this is really an opportunity to showcase your strengths at another institution. Historically, it's also been an opportunity to experience a new place and what the programs are like. And we recognize that right now, one of the biggest questions nationally is what's going to happen with externships. You will hear from seniors and from blogs and other places that you get information, or from specialty advisors, that historically students would start to apply for externships as early as January or February. I can tell you right now that externships are not open. And if any are open, you cannot take a look at what was offered last year, like in prior years, because this past year, everything was virtual. So my advice right now is keep your ears open. We are actively pursuing answers in this realm. It is not safe right now to have students traveling all over the country. We hope that will change. But what I can share is that many schools have taken the opportunity to establish virtual experiences and made them quite robust. So although you're not setting foot in a hospital, you are participating. Now, our seniors, I would say we only had like about 20 students who participated in 4-credit virtual externships, but recognize that those were being created as things were shutting down. So I am hopeful that what your class will experience, if externships are not in person, are the opportunity to really participate in meaningful experiences in a virtual environment, because as you know, everybody has done a whole lot in that space, and these will continue to be expanded. Others present you. Obviously, you've applied to medical school and other places before that, and you know of the value and importance of letters of recommendation, and also what is called the MSPE, the MISP, or the Medical Student Performance Evaluation. So, who should write them? Letters of recommendation. Doctors you've worked with clinically. The goal is for the level of involvement in clinical care more than in the importance of the length of time. And this is something that students will talk with their advisors about if you're not sure. Don't presume that your engagement with faculty was not good enough. I promise you we will have those conversations. Should come from university faculty, not from family and friends or personal doctors you know. And you all have an ARIS token that has limited use, and as earlier conversations with your class shared information about the use of that token, you can ask for letters as you go along through the year, and you should, because that doesn't mean that you're committing to use the letter. It's just asking. The faculty may not even write the letter right now, but some might, and then it's uploaded and it's there for you to make decisions about later. The bullet about asking while on externships is important because if you either go away or participate virtually, it does give you the opportunity to ask for letters in that environment. So my next question for you is the MSPE. It is just like a letter of recommendation from the advisor who writes it. Wow. What do you think? Okay, majority wins here. True. I'm sorry, you are correct. Those who said false. The MSPE is not anything like a letter of recommendation from your advisor. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It is an objective description of your performance. And I share that because it's important for you to understand that the MSPE can be written by any of your advisors the same way. It is a performance evaluation that includes a summary of how you performed preclinically, a summary of your clinical grades that include the narratives that speak to your strengths and any difficulties you encountered. The opening is a section called Noteworthy Characteristics that you will receive a lot of information about how to write because you will get to write them. So those come from you and your ability to highlight what you feel should be the most noteworthy. You will be discussing specifics with your advising faculty. It's meant to highlight your strengths in the noteworthy characteristics. And if there are weaknesses along the way that you've encountered, we'll prepare you to talk about them in a mock interview before a long time from now, you will be interviewing. And the most important part is the MSPE is not something you waive your right to see. You will all read and sign that you have read your MSPE. So it's quite different from a letter of recommendation. And then at the end, you put it all together. And obviously we'll have many more conversations before you're at this place next year. Now, a brief overview of how the application process works. And you see at the bottom, it says there's going to be more details in May. So there's a lot of information here and I fly through it so you understand there's a lot more coming. I used to not even share this information this early, but I chose to because students ask a lot of questions and I would rather you be aware of all of the steps of the process that we will guide you through. It does not mean that you have to absorb all of this. It's on the website. And again, as I mentioned, we're transitioning websites. So there'll be a lot more information and all of these links will be available to you on our website. So a brief overview. What kind of residency positions are you applying to? Most of you will be applying to what are called categorical programs. That is basically all the programs that begin in your first year, called your intern year, and continuing onward. Some of you will apply to specialties that are considered advanced, meaning you will do a one-year program followed by the specialty that starts in what's called the PGY, the postgraduate year 2. And if you apply to an advanced program, you may need to apply to one-year positions as well. That'll be part of the process. What is the match itself? Well, the match is the process by which students apply for and are matched to their residency training programs. And there are several kinds of match. What are they? Oh, excuse me. There's the regular match and there's the early match and there's the military match. A lot of organizations, most of you will participate in what we call the NRMP, the National Residency Match Program. Many of you, if not most of you, will use the application service called ERIS. Those of you applying in ophthalmology will apply separately and participate in the San Francisco match. Those of you applying in urology will use ERIS for your application, but you will go through the AUA match, and the U.S. Armed Services has its own process as well, and we will work with you on all of those. This is a graphic representation, again, of the application part and then the match part. Again, you don't have to be an expert at this right now. There's the main match for most of you, and another important piece that I'll mention now because it has to do with your advising is the couples match. It is part of the main match, but the computer allows you to designate that you would like to go through the match together and have the algorithm take into account both applicants' combinations. I'll leave it at that. What's important is we will ask you when you're selecting your advisor choices that if you know you're applying as a couple, to please indicate the same choices because we try to pair you with the same advisor so we can work through the process together. So please identify yourself if possible so we assign you accordingly. A message here again that's more important in May, but I will mention here, and that is that if you are participating in an early match like ophthalmology, we also encourage you to register for the main match, which you may need for that first year position. Again, more about that in May. Now the timelines, why do I mention this now? Because they're really important things you should be thinking about in the early spring. But all of the pieces that come later, you don't have to be stressed out about right now. There's enough to worry about now. And I promise you, you will have time and repeated conversations and guidance about the parts that come later in the spring. So right now, the reason we have this conversation is because many of you are well beyond thinking about specialty choice. Many of you have made a decision, or you came to med school with a decision. And remember in the first year, we talked about how many of you who came to med school with a set idea change your mind. About 60% of the people who feel like they know what they're going to do change their mind along the way. So you have a whole half a year ahead of you to still think about this. But we want you to start thinking about what information you need and use the resources that I'm about to show you or remind you of. Again, a reminder that you have this ERAS token. And if you don't remember where it is, please email your registrar, Marta, and she can reissue one for you. It won't be until June that you receive your full access to ERAS when it opens. So we still have many months until then. Now is the time to utilize all these resources. And again, there are links. I will post this presentation, and we also have links to all of these resources, or will have live ones very shortly on the new version of the website. You will be meeting with an advisor whom you will select. You will be choosing senior schedules. You might be planning more research, and you can start thinking about what externships may be available even in the virtual space. And a reminder here that these are all live links, and this takes you directly to the application service page where you can start looking at what was available last year. Another comment about externships. So VSAS is also known as VSLO, in interchangeable words, the visiting student learning opportunities, which include global health opportunities that right now, of course, are not on the table. Access is provided in the past in early January. And again, that's on hold right now, but we will communicate as soon as we know. Your primary contacts will be Lindsay Buttle and Claudia Miller at the RMC. And once the process becomes live, what is really important for you to understand is that there's a long process. If we hopefully have the opportunity to send students anywhere live, there are many steps that you need to pay attention to and follow directions to earn credit and to be qualified to go. So on the new website, again, under Student Affairs is Externship Services. And this takes you there, this link, and you'll see that there will be a document here that will guide you through every single step that you'll need to follow. So that is something that'll be important to pay attention to in the early spring. There are all of these things that places require when the externship is live. So again, right now things are on hold, but a lot of these tasks are important to pay attention to, and students like to know about them now in case they might need to pursue them in the early spring. So we'll be in touch again about the guide. Importantly, if you're going to earn credit from your externship, you must comply with the policies or you will not get credit for your rotation. So if you're spending 4 weeks, even if you're doing something virtually and you're due to get credit for it, you need to make sure you're following the policies. What happens in February? Ms. Garcia and I are currently planning with some of your student leaders a revised version virtually of what we call the Residency Program Directors Meeting, which is a chance to meet with all of our Residency Program Directors in a small group to talk about the application process. Used to be live, some of you may have attended last year, but we're converting that into a virtual offering. Additionally, our alumni are joining us in creating a virtual career advising. Instead of dinner, it will be a series of chats to talk about their life in the specialty. I definitely would like to highlight what I'm most excited about, which is the launch on the new website of the page called Medical Specialties. This is under career advising again. And when you click medical specialties, I'm not going to open each one, but what Ms. Garcia and I have been working on is detail for every single one of our specialties that students apply into. And I'll use anesthesia, for example. Again, we don't control the website, so there's still some edits, but it will describe from careers in medicine, the field, who your primary specialty advisors are. I believe Ms. Garcia made links to their emails. Yep. Okay, I'm not going to go there now, but they're all live links to Outlook and links to the interest group for every specialty with who the advisor is, who the student leaders are, and our RMC groups, with amazing links also to national resources and local resources, because these may be places that you want to consider joining a student group or a professional affiliation, or just go to the website and see what opportunities exist for our students in order to engage in some career advising that's available nationally from many of these organizations that provide resources for students, often for free. So make sure you check that out. CVs and personal statements into the spring. Ms. Garcia is going to be your point person to review your CV before you bring it to your faculty advisor. And she will also be a great resource for all of you as you start writing your personal statements much later in the spring. Later, we'll start talking about programs and the match and your actual application materials. You will continue to meet with your advisors during the spring to the summer and get much more heavily involved in the actual application process. The applications as of now, if we go back to the original deadline, not the COVID deadline, that will be September 15th for everything except military and early match. And letters will be due no later than October 1, and the MSPE may revert back to going out on October 1. Give me a moment. I see the chat. Oh, thanks, Christina. Thank you for sharing that. All right. And then here we are a year later where you're actually submitting a rank list. That's going to be a lot later, and match day will be March 19th, 2022, which will come like this. So graphically, here's where we are now. You're just here. This is all to come. Now is the time in the spring to start thinking about where you want to go with your application and allow your advisors to help guide you. Making connections with faculty. If you have ideas, even if you're considering more than one specialty, reach out to faculty to discuss your interests. In May, we will talk about the process. This is just a very high level note that there's a ton on the ERIS website. If you are eager to see what it looks like, just go right to the website. You can just type ERIS and it'll take you right there. There is amazing information there, including all of the specialty information that was posted during COVID to help students relax a bit about the uncertainty about what all the expectations were that were brand new. So you will use this. This will say 2022 actually. And you will have a user guide. You will have a whole portal about how to complete letters of recommendation, and the dates again, just here to look at that we already talked about. So September 15th is most likely the magic date, unless the national committees and groups decide to postpone things again, but I doubt it. Switching gears. This is really important now in December, because if you're on break, or early in the spring, it is critical that students know how much data is available for you out there. And before I share the data, the question for you all is really, where do you go for your information? So up until now, where do you go to find information about the residency match? You can choose more than one, by the way. Excellent. I'm loving your responses. So one of the things that is really, really important is the red line. 60% of you indicated that peers give you most of or a lot of your information, at least right now. And that is obviously really, really important because your peers guide you on how they did things. Now, I didn't specify, are these peers who are seniors, who are juniors, or who have graduated? The students who have gone through the match, alumni who are still your peers, residents, I think, are a great resource to all of you, or fellows, super helpful. They've been through the process, they've interviewed around the country, even this year, especially with the interviews in the virtual space that your seniors are navigating now. But I do want to caution you that when you talk to each other for advice, none of you right now have gone through the match. And I think frequently what leads to a lot of anxiety is sometimes misinformation that spreads like wildfire when it comes from someone in the class with some information that is just shared broadly. And we don't have the opportunity to sometimes quelch rumors. So be careful when we talk about peers that you're getting information from students who have successfully navigated the process and are able to give you informed information. Because a lot of times I can share that the anxiety can be lessened tremendously when you ask questions of folks that may have a little bit more information than someone who hasn't gone through the process. Now, I see that Reddit over time, as I know, has replaced SDN really as a resource. And there's a lot of data mined on Reddit, but you have to take things with a grain of salt, like we always talk about the World Wide Web and what info is out there. Some of you are talking with advisors, and I think many of you now, when you are assigned or get to select an advisor you're going to work with, hopefully will realize that there's a lot of information that we will share with you and guide you. Doximity becomes more popular once you're applying because students look up programs on Doximity. Parents and loved ones usually gets a little higher here because people like to ask their parents what they think, or loved ones who know you well, and other websites. And I may ask you all to share what other websites are the most useful for you so we can make sure we're targeting the right information. I believe many of you are familiar with charting outcomes in the match. I talked about how resources are critically important for you guys to understand. So the reason I share this here, this is one, and it's the new one. This is the 2020 charting outcomes. You can find it on the NRMP website. You just type NRMP, you'll go there and you look for data and reports. Again, these will be linked on our website as well. Charting outcomes gives you very important information about US MD seniors who matched in their preferred specialty. So if you're starting to look for what data is out there that I can compare myself to understand, am I competitive? And then the next step, which is the critical piece, where am I competitive? Which programs? We're going to talk about how you're going to navigate that. And you don't have all the information yet, but you certainly have some of it. So I put this up here, and I know I'm not in the room with you because I always like to ask this question. And I use anesthesiology just as an example from this report. When I ask students how they use charting outcomes, I assure you that most go straight to mean USMLE step score. And they see that in 2020, of the 1,112 students who match from US medical schools into anesthesia, the mean step 1 score was 234. So students say, well, I scored a 220, therefore I won't match in anesthesia. I'm not competitive. And the reason I show this is because it is the next graph that I think is also critically important. And that is also for anesthesia. If you look at step 1 scores, the dark blue are the students who matched. The green are the students who did not match. So using the example, the mean was 234. So here are 303 students who scored step 1 scores between 231 and 240. 10 people in that range still did not match. This data does not tell you why, and it doesn't tell you why 4 people who had even higher scores did not match. But what it does show you is way down here that 12 students who scored between 191 and 200 did match in anesthesia, and 14 did not. But between a 201 and 210 in 2020, 55 matched and 21 did not. So I encourage you not to only look at this graph. This is important, but it doesn't tell the whole story. It tells you what this means is number of contiguous ranks. This means how many programs did they rank on a list, meaning they had to have interviewed at that number of programs. And that is the mean number. Again, it doesn't show you the range, and you can dig into more of the details. So take this at face value, but spend some time understanding all of the information. And then you'll review that with your advisor and with specialty advisors who really will give you the most information about how competitive you are in that field. And those are the conversations that I want some of you to start having early, especially if you're nervous from what peers tell you or what faculty tell you or what you've heard. That is where your experts come into play, and not just what peers tell you, because they know an N of 1, they know their experience or what they've heard from other people. But your advisors and your specialty advisors especially are the folks who are reviewing applications. They are interviewing applicants every year, and they're the ones who know the range and can help guide you on how to be successful. The next resource I want to point out is something that's still on the NRMP page called the interactive charting outcomes in the match. So this allows you to go in and enter some data. So last year, it allows you to put in your specialty and type your applicant type, and then just put in scores, for example. And you can see where you match up compared to other now residents who have matched, and what their demographic looks like based on many of the criteria. So this was one of the first data sets to allow you to really look at yourself compared to the specialty. Again, not compared to a program, but at least how do things look for the specialty. Some of you have emailed me about Texas STAR. So you may have heard from peers about Texas STAR. This started in Texas, obviously, and it stands for Seeking Transparency and Application to Residency. This was a program that initially was just in Texas schools, and now they have expanded nationally. And you will all receive an email from me that lets you know that you have been entered into their database, and you will receive a link to access this data, and it will ask you to activate your link within 30 days. When that comes, please activate it so you can actually use this system. This is not perfect because it is based on data entry by the users. So this asks every senior around the country to submit information about themselves into this database. And that includes all of their demographic information and scores and membership in honorary societies, and then where they're from geographically, what school they're from, obviously, and where they were offered interviews and where they matched. Now, our response rate from our school is only about 40% every year. So if only 40% of our seniors submit data, it's our third year participating. And it's only as good as the data that's there, but it gives students the opportunity to regionally be able to control what they see. So you can look and say, okay, based on what I see from the South, which programs seem to offer interviews to people like me? And again, you can review this with your advisor. The link to this is on our website. Another really exciting tool that I was really happy finally launched, but in July, is called Residency Explorer. This comes from the AAMC. Somebody keeps unmuting. I'm sorry. Can you mute yourself, please? I'm going to keep trying to do it, but
It's
I can't.
yeah, it seems like it's Lauren, and there's
Okay, got it. So Residency Explorer also is a tool that allows you to enter your own data and look at where you match among 23 specialties, comparing your profile to applicants who matched at specific programs. So this was huge. You can see how many organizations came together. This has been like a 5-year project to finally be able to give students some sense of real live data that is accurate, not just on self-report, but based on MBME scores, and looking at which programs are matching students that might fit the picture a little differently. So again, if you're in that anesthesia example and you scored a little lower than you would have liked on step 1, for example, these are the data points that you want to look at and say, what programs should I actually be applying to? And then you'll meet with your advisor and your specialty advisor, and you'll work that out together. But again, I'm running through this to show you all these resources that are on the web and available to you. So throughout the spring, you spend some time exploring. There is also something called the Program Director Survey. And this asks program directors in every specialty across the country 2 questions. How important are each of these factors for you, program director, in deciding to select someone for an interview? And it'll show you what % of the respondents, granted, there's like 9,000 programs in the country. So you can see the response rate is only 650. And then the second question asks, what's important to actually rank an applicant once they interviewed? And you can see most cite that 96% say interactions with faculty during the interview are critically important, 4.8. So the goal when you apply is to apply smartly based on where you think you fit, to garner interviews so you can interview, show off your talents, and then have programs to rank. And that's what we will spend the spring getting you ready for. Again, this is by specialty. Then there's places to start searching for actual program information. One of them is called Frida. That's only one of the resources that our students use. All of these things are things that I've mentioned, and there will be links on our website, including the match algorithm, if you want to read more about it, how it works, and all the data and reporting that is available on the NRMP site. I mentioned that our website was updated, and so the section on Prepare for Residency was just transferred over from the old website. We are still actively updating a lot of the information, so what you hear today and see today will look a whole lot nicer for you shortly. There are resources on the web and linked from our website, like the roadmap to residency that the AAMC publishes. Careers in Medicine has a lot of links that are really important. And I love this. This is old from SDN, and I don't have anything on Reddit, but I want to remind you that as we look to guide you as your advisors, We want you to recognize that your peers will have great information, and it's really useful at a lot of times throughout the process. But make sure that you're connecting with specialty advisors early if you can. And that's why we work so hard. We were delayed because of COVID, because the whole website launch was delayed, but getting the names of our specialty advisors accessible to you so you can reach out to talk about your interest and talk one-on-one about your competitiveness and how to go about being more competitive or maintaining your competitiveness will be really important. So don't underestimate the value of talking to faculty who are here and excited to guide you. Lastly, here's one of the best things to come from the pandemic. If you are not having to interview around the country, we know our seniors, silver lining, saved thousands of dollars in the process. Now, that's not to say that everybody doesn't wish that they could visit places in person. We understand how difficult it might be to make these decisions literally sight unseen. And that's a process we're going to work through with our seniors as they're putting together their rank list. But if we go back to how the application process traditionally worked, including the amount of money you'll pay just to apply, spend some time on the AAMC website looking at the costs and how you plan for this, because some of the cost of applying to residency is not included in the cost of attendance. Some is and some is not, and it doesn't always meet students' needs. So this is something I mention here because you're going to need to plan for it. I'll also remind you, I know I sent the email today, but we're very excited to welcome Mark Justice, our new Director of Financial Assistance. So he will be the person working with you throughout the spring as we're looking to plan for the residency application cycle. That was a whirlwind, and I know it was a ton of information. I want you to know that even though this comes from Careers in Medicine, this is all about finding your fit, just like the puzzle. There's a lot to think about in terms of yourself. There's a lot to think about. Oh, sorry, one more song. Forgot this was here. There's a lot to think about, and recognize that it is a process. It's a process that you have to commit to. It's a process that we are committed to. And our next step is to have you select advisors, recognize that all of the advisors have a tremendous amount of experience working with students. We have some new folks joining the team as official transition to residency advisors, but they are clerkship directors and people that have been in medical education for quite some time and certainly know the environment, and obviously our physicians who went through the process. So we are all here to guide you. The MSPE process will also be very clear to you. We will have some group advising sessions, we'll have individual advising sessions, and most importantly, as you start thinking about your specialties, please reach out to specialty advisors, many of whom are your clerkship directors and some are program directors. So I will leave you at that. I'm going to look at the chat for a minute, and then I'm happy to stay here for a while and ask questions. If some of you need to sign off, I know it's 6 o'clock. This is recorded. This will be posted, and many of these links will be on our website soon. So for the group, question is, are the faculty advisors the same ones you had for the first 2 years? So the answer is, it depends. Many of you may end up choosing people that you worked with in year 1 and 2. Some are the same, some are different, and you'll be able to put in some choices. We do our best to honor that. When will you get access to the STAR database? I have to reach out to them and just ask if it's active for juniors right now. And as soon as they tell me yes, I send them a list of all of our juniors and they will automatically email you. And I'll let you know the email is coming because it looks like spam. It says something like Bo Ren has invited you to something in Microsoft, and usually students think it's spam. And for those of you who had Dr. Alex Machaber, you'll be able to choose. We transitioned his students this year. If you went on a leave of absence and you were previously assigned to him, then when I send out the list, you'll be able to choose who you'd like to work with or make requests. Yes, thank you. You already answered, sorry. And how do you see who the specialty advisors are? On the website, the link that was here and on our professional development website, there is a link to specialty advisors or to medical specialties, excuse me. And I think Christina posted it earlier in the chat. Yes, the link to medical specialties, the contacts are there by specialty. Other questions about anything? Thank you. I know it's hard not to interact with you live, and I didn't want to necessarily put you in breakout rooms for this session. We will do so when we have our residency program director meeting and our career advising dinner, so we can talk more personally one-on-one, and you can talk with our residency program directors about individual specialties. Any questions? You can post anonymously, you can post not anonymously, you can unmute yourself and ask whatever you'd like. And I'll just summarize that the main goal was to let you know that there's a lot of information out there for you to utilize. And the most successful thing that students can do in the spring is focus on doing well in your rotations and thinking about how you're impacted by each of those experiences. And if you really feel confused, start that conversation early about what your barriers are to making decisions and what you'd like to see. It is totally normal for students to make choices later in the spring after they complete their final rotation. And then that is the moment where they feel like, this is what I really want to do. And your advisors will be here to guide you. Sometimes you need to make changes in your senior schedule. All of that is totally customary and things that we've worked through every year, and we'll help you with that process. All right, well, we can end. I will stay here if anyone wants to stick around for a few more minutes. And thank you all for coming. Thank you for your attention and for being here. And there'll be a lot more information coming. There's a question here while you all log off. How many weeks should we block out for interviews? Well, historically, I would say that students would block off sometimes an entire month or sometimes 2 weeks at a time. And this year, students are completing them a lot earlier because everything is virtual. So some of that will be, you can block out the time and you may or may not need it. I know that your class may end up having a lot more flexibility in your senior schedule, which will be awesome because unlike your junior schedule, there's a lot of flexibility. So even if you make choices and then you find interview invites are coming at a different time, you'll be able to move things around. I would say that that's a question that you could ask your peers. Many of them will tell you they tried to block off around 4 weeks of time. If you have more time, you may just put electives in there that you could end up moving around or even dropping if you don't need the credit.
A quick question for you, Dr. Machaber.
Yes, thank you, Jessica.
A bunch of really great resources, and I really appreciate that. I was wondering which of those you recommend to utilize for a comprehensive list of like all of the programs offered in a certain specialty, like as in like by region or something like that.
Good question. So a lot of the resources that you're looking at how you compare to the programs would not be the resources for just getting a comprehensive list. So FRIDA, the database FRIDA is one of the spaces that students may go to. The other is once you start utilizing ERIS, ERIS will give you the opportunity to look at all programs also, and you could look by region. FRIDA, I think now, before you have full access to ERIS, is definitely useful to pull up a search by all kinds of things, looking at tracks, looking at geography, looking at length of program, example, you know, in emergency medicine, 3 years versus 4 years. And then some of those links on the specialty pages to the specialty organizations, particularly I'll use EMED as an example, have a lot of information for applicants, including some of them may have lists of all the programs by specialty. So that's another space that you could use. Careers in medicine also, I would say FRIDA and Careers in Medicine have the most comprehensive lists, I believe. Thank you, Christina. All right, well, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining me, and we will be in touch soon. Take care of yourselves. Great to see you all here. Have a good night.
Dr. Machaber.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.